I've done a scarcity exercise where the customers have to pretend they're our product org, which is, hey, here's our roadmap for the next 6 months. You get 5 votes on this long list of things. Where do you put them?
How do you design an executive role well?
Getting kind of the span of control right, but really trying to give them enough real estate that they really have a pretty clear charter and a pretty clear field in which to operate so they can go make the changes happen that we're hiring them to make.
I love your thing of like being a good citizen, and it's the in-house people that are good, but for those senior level roles, paid search works better.
If you can ask the behavioral questions like, okay, why was this a problem? Why were you tackling this? What was hard about it? Who'd you have to work with? Very easy to separate the people who actually led the process versus those who were bystanders and are claiming the credit on their resume.
Welcome to Whispered Hiring, the podcast where we talk with senior leaders about how they find, vet, attract, and grow go-to-market talent. I'm Andy Mowat, the founder of Whispered. We deeply believe that your next role won't be posted at the senior levels. It will be whispered. Today, I'm joined by Paul Staelin. Paul is one of the top post-sales leaders I know. I've known him since Stanford MBA when we collaborated there, and we've got to know each other a lot more as we've gotten later in the careers. Paul has been CCO at Vercel, Trifacta, and Birst. He deeply understands how AI works and how customers think. Paul, welcome.
Thank you, Andy. I'm honored to be here.
I'm so excited to deep dive on some of the topics we've talked about offline for a while. So thanks for taking the time. Paul, maybe to kick it off, you became a CCO. Very few people even the role of CSM didn't even exist probably when you and I were in business school. Actually, I know it didn't because Nick Mehta, one of our previous guests, helped coin the term and make it popular. But you grew up in product management and then you became CS. I'm curious, tell us how your experience as a product leader influences how you think about customer success today.
Yeah, but it's interesting. So yeah, did get my start in software and product management at Siebel Systems way back in the day, who was very good at these things. And as I've moved on to different roles and found different parts of the customer experience more fun, I do view that customer experience very much as a product. It's got to be something that's repeatable, it's scalable, it adds value. You're trying to drive, predictable value in very tailored ways to different companies. I like that kind of product mindset, where if you're going to have the step on that journey, it better be adding value. One of the fastest ways to make me upset is have a call with a customer where you show up and just ask how their kids and dogs are doing. If you're not actually doing things to kind of guide them forward, teach them something, ask them, discovery questions to find out more about the account, there has to be some meat in that exchange to understand what they're trying to do or to guide them to use your solution more effectively. It's got to be in there. Or it's not worth the time.
I agree. I think a lot of CCOs are successful. The product success is a part of their success. I'm curious, as you meet companies, how do you evaluate the strength of a product team?
Oh, that's interesting.
And I know I gave you a doozy, so take it for that one for sure.
Yeah,
but it is or maybe what signals do you know that product is working with you as a partner versus fighting against you, right? I've been at companies where we just don't ship anything for a year or two. And it's really hard to not be able to show up with, hey, here's the newest features or solve the customer problems. And so I'm curious, how do you evaluate the quality of your product partner?
There are a lot of different ways that kind of the customer facing functions and the product function need to be successfully collaborating. And there's different cycles. The one that's probably the first that most organizations will build out is some sort of weekly interlock for whatever the fire du jour is at whatever big customer A needs desperately to be successful. And generally, though, if those meetings are happening, it generally signals there's an openness from product to make sure that they're addressing customer needs. And there's some engagement and customer empathy, because ideally, one of the things that I try to do as the CCO is get product in front of some of those customers. There are more strategic interactions, like monthly kind of from support is commonly, hey, these are the areas we're seeing the highest frequency of problems, and these are the problems that are causing the most pain. So you just look for high frequency, high pain problems and try to get product to work on those, introduce them to some customers who have experienced those problems and try to design them out. And there's more higher level roadmap items where ideally, the customer facing org, both sales and post sales, are able to say, hey, look, these are the things that really matter to our customers. Please incorporate them in the roadmap. This is what you've got. By the way, if you pick any of these items, we've got the customers we can introduce you to as design partners. And one of the other more strategic items, even above that I've generally built, is a customer advisory board where you get a cross section of customers. You don't want 3 big customers who dominate it. You want to turn them over, so it's different voices, different times. I've done a scarcity exercise where the customers have to pretend they're our product org, which is, hey, here's our roadmap for the next 6 months. You get 5 votes. You could put 5 on one item, or 1 on 5 items, or 3 on 1, however you want to do it. But you only get 5 votes on this long list of things. Where do you put them? And it could be something that's not even up there. You say, I need all 5 votes on this one thing because it's desperately important to me. Totally fair. But you end up with pretty clear signals coming to the product org, which they need to be willing to listen to and respond to.
It is so powerful. That partnership with product is you absolutely need to be successful. We were talking before we recorded kind of on the profile and the DNA of like how you build your CS team. I'd be fascinated for you to kind of share the approach that you had on that.
Yeah, so CSM, again, relatively new function. And in general, each company has very different factors to get their customer successful. I've generally done platforms in analytics, data prep, and front-end engineering, so very different spaces. Most of those spaces, it's been a pretty new solution. So I found I've had to grab people from 3 basic backgrounds to build all the right DNA to have a good customer success management function. And this is customer success management function, not customer hugging function. One, in general, you need people who have been kind of on the implementation side.
Yes.
From the vendor, ideally, someone who's been actually working with customers, trying to help build and tailor the solution, who's got some feelings and experience in like how you chunk this problem up, what a good milestone is, what a good target is, how long a kind of a project phase, that project management lens and project structuring. You generally need some folks from with sales backgrounds, because the ability to do very real discovery, people who are comfortable with the golden silence. One of the failure modes in many CSM orgs is you just get pleasers who want to talk about cats, kids, and dogs, and don't actually do the hard discovery questions, or aren't comfortable with silence. If there is silence, they fill it rather than letting the customer respond to the question. So that discovery discipline, very important to have in the org. And the last one, generally that you really, really want to make sure is present, is someone who's ideally an actual early customer, someone who's operated in the space, has very real empathy for the challenges of getting a program kind of approved and moving forward in the types of organizations you're selling to, but really have a real customer empathy because they were a customer. And so if you have kind of that project management, sales, and kind of customer empathy and knowledge, you can really go a very long way. And you're kind of making a chili where all the flavors swap off each other. You can't have all beans, can't have all meat, it can't have all spices, or it's not a chili.
I love that. I think the point on comfortable with silence is a great one. Like we use it in our whispered member huddles, where sometimes silence yields questions that you wouldn't have thought of before. And I think similarly with sales, like you're right, like it is a very different mindset, and to be able to make sure that your CS org is not just the engagement and adoption side, but also the commercial side is really powerful. 2 that maybe I would love to click on, and you didn't specifically name, although I'm sure they're in your heads. One is just the data and operations muscle. Like how do you get that, find that, build that into your org?
So I spent about 20 years in the data analytics space. I bring quite a bit of DNA myself to the organization. I do place a very high importance of getting a very good operational partner to help build these things out in terms of being able to look at the health and other things of the customer base. I'm very good at building these tools, broadly defined health scores and other items. I've got some very real expertise there. But I generally will look to bring that to the table from the ops function or myself, and then satisfy the needs. So you just got to do kind of the focus group with the people in your team. What do you need? What do you need to know? What would be really helpful? What's important? How do you know when things are going well? Asking those types of questions, and then trying to provide the tool. But I do rely on my background more there than I probably should.
Well, it's nice. Like I've worked with C-level post-sale leaders that don't get the numbers and get the stuff, but I think having someone like you that can leverage the data and the insights to be able to do it is so powerful. Other one that's the hot term du jour. I'd be curious. Actually, this one's maybe more on the sales side, but it's the forward deployed engineers, right? In principle, it's we're putting almost the CS implementation people before the sale. I'm curious. I'm betting with Vercel, you probably got deep into some of that as well too, right? Because you're working with those customers. Like, what's your opinion on the forward deployed engineer just generally? I've seen, the principle is good, right? Which is invest the money up front to make sure they use versus at the end to save them in the last 3 months. But I'm sure you've thought a lot about this concept, both pre-sale and post-sale. Because what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah. So everything that's old is new again. Forward deployed engineering is a brilliant rebranding of the old professional services motion.
It is. You're absolutely right.
The thing that's interesting is that, in the Palantir model, they were providing bodies forever. Hey, government, our people are better than your people and will be forever. That's a perfectly valid value prop, right? You can get away with that. Most big companies want to be able to take ownership over time, and you can be trapped there. So it is a little bit trickier in certain spots having a good ending point. And it's very tricky to make sure that you're actually empowering the customer to do the things that you need to do for them to assume ownership over time. Otherwise, you're going to have, 3,000 people in your field organization, which is not where most companies want to be. So the forward deployed engineer is great. In Palantir's case, they in theory were building features that ultimately be turned into parts of the platform, and they were building out the platform by having these forward deployed engineers. I think the terms, again, brilliant rebranding. But I think what most firms really want and need is a professional services team that will show up, guide the customer through the first implementation or two, teach their people how to do the things that need to be done so that you can have your professional services people stop and go work on the next customer. But the kind of the mental model I use for the customer journey, first you got to stick the landing, get that first use case up and successful. Then you want to spend time going from that kind of making sure that first project is successful to getting into kind of a program management phase where they're using you for multiple projects. And then you can get to account ownership. If you're not sticking the landing, you're fired. So you really do. It is very worth your while to have people with good technical, good kind of project management, structuring skills, and prioritization skills, getting alignment with the customer about what success is, when you're done, how you can get out. All those old PS disciplines are incredibly important. If you're just doing forward deployed engineering, you're just throwing bodies at it, it's very hard to get them out. Because the customer will come up with the next thing that they absolutely positively have to have your team also do, or they won't be successful. Well, now that you're done with that, we realize it's this next thing, and you can be stuck.
I agree fully with that. I just scribbling it down because it's so good. We at Fox, I got lucky. We had a $50 million PS function that was incredibly well run. We would bring them in. I think we even did stats around the retention and NRR if they had PS attached was just off the charts. And so I've gotten to see a great PS function run that was really impressive. So I echo you. I always coach people on PS. I'm unlucky that I didn't coin the term forward deployed engineer. It's kind of like coining the term unicorn. Yeah.
Brilliant.
It's great.
Actually at Birst, we had a motion where we had very strong partners, and we had trained these partners to do things the way we recommended them to. And we had very real data. If you used PS or a partner, it doesn't matter. But if you went through an implementation motion, the NDR for those customers was about 40 points higher.
We were similar. I forget the exact numbers at Fox, but it was something like in the 100 versus 137% range. Like it was significant. It was amazing. I think we got to the point where the CEO even said, we will require that as an attach. Like the only people that can remove the attach are the CCO who PS rolls up to, which has become really powerful in that regard, where CCO has a say on how the sales are closed, which I thought was just really well done. How do you design an executive role well? Like what's necessary before you start to hire that VP or C-level underneath you?
Getting kind of the span of control right, giving them enough of a piece that they actually can build something meaningful and aren't crippled and dependent on someone else in important areas. Of course, there's teamwork and boundaries. Every interface, you need to be able to work well with others. But really trying to give them enough real estate that they really have a pretty clear charter and a pretty clear field in which to operate so they can go make the changes happen that we're hiring them to make.
Yeah, I would agree. So say you've got an executive role you're kicking off. The first thing I think universal is you're going to ping your network, right? You go on LinkedIn, you search for like the title, and then you ping those people and be like, hey, are you free? If not, who is? When that doesn't work, which it often doesn't, like what do you do next? Like, do you go work with in-house recruiters? Do you engage external recruiters? Like, how do you post roles? Do you source through network? Like, how do you find talent?
So I do hit my personal experiential network, people with whom I've worked first, and then people that have worked with those people whose opinions I trust second. If that doesn't work, generally you've got to go with an in-house recruiter and give that a shot, just to be a good corporate citizen.
Yep.
And then depending if the role is a very senior director or a junior VP, you might be able to actually continue in that vein. If it's really a senior VP who knows what they're really doing, from there you kind of got to go to a paid search.
I agree. I feel like to some degree you have to give the in-house. I love your thing of like being a good citizen, and it's the in-house people that are good. But for those senior level roles, paid search works better. Do you post senior level roles and still have your in-house team filter through? Or, I mean, if Vercel would have been a hot name, right? Like if you post somebody, you probably get 4,000 resumes. Like, or do you say at that senior level, no, I'm not going to post. I'm just going to like go straight to recruiter?
When we're at the in-house recruiter, we have to post.
Sure, you're right. I guess otherwise it's not even in the ATS or anything like that. Yeah, those are fun. It's always to see like how far did people get on those. How does talent find you, Paul? Like how did people get into your network, right? Like you've been doing it for so long. How do people break through to you? Is there a story of where somebody's been able to like reach out to you, engage you, and kind of become part of your ecosystem?
Yeah, it's a good question. Most often, warm intros go a long way. Hey, Susie, with whom you've worked, and I had a conversation. I'm working on this thing. She thought you might be able to give me some insight. I'd love to pick your brain. That works like 100% of the time. I've had people who will actually just light me up on LinkedIn and say, "Hey, I saw this thing that you did. I'm working on this thing in my company. I would love to get your thoughts." Like that works. Or hey, I'm trying to break
thoughtful, relevant, researched versus cold and
Yes.
stuff like that. Right?
Yeah. In general, if it's like, hey, I'd like to connect, or hey, how is your company using AI? I'm like, I don't think I'm having this conversation with you. So in general, if you've done the homework, I'm more than happy to respond, engage, and share what thoughts I can, which are probably worth what you pay for them, which is nothing. But happy to chat.
I agree. I think it's like you get those LinkedIn invites, and like I accept ones all the time from cool people. I've made some of the best relationships I've ever done, but it's got to be thoughtful and it's got to be personal and show that before they're going to ask for your time that they've done their own time as well too. Maybe let's shift over to the interview process. Before we started recording, you said you were really passionate about the behavioral interviews.
Oh yeah.
Your experience at Siebel is I think we all grow up with like, how do we interview well? We don't know how to guest that's gone deep into the behavioral interview. So I'd love to hear like, what does that mean to you? How do you design them? How do you evaluate on them?
Yeah. So Siebel had a lot of points of their religion. One of which was that thou shalt do behavioral interviews, and that an underlying premise is, hey, people can pitch you on what they've done, and people who have good sales skills can sell you. They can. What you really want to make sure is that the way that they're going to behave when they come here is going to be adaptive to your culture and organization. And you want to be able to suss that out by digging into their behaviors at the last job, because people tend to behave the same way in different jobs. So the underlying thesis is pretty clean. So what that generally means is, A, I can show up to an interview having skimmed your resume and know what job I want to dig into, or jobs if I think they're more relevant. And then I'm really just trying to find a big project or a big effort or someplace that you made a difference. And if you can ask the behavioral questions like, okay, why was this a problem? Why were you tackling this? What was hard about it? Who'd you have to work with? What did that mean? How often did you meet? And asking all the behavioral questions about like how you identified the problem, how you tackled the problem. It's very easy to separate the people who actually led the process versus those who were bystanders and are claiming the credit on their resume. That's one of the more valuable things because it's very hard to snow you in terms of the work that was done if you just keep asking questions. And one of the other things I'm very much looking forward to, or looking for, and as I kind of cast forward in terms of your success in my organization, you've got to be someone who's going to be better a year from now than you are right now. You've got to have growth mindset. You've got to be open-minded. You've got to be self-critical. You've got to be able to have some judgment. So walking through like, hey, what'd you do? Why'd you do it? How'd it work? What went well? What went badly? And then the question that is the real money one for me that I've seen, gives very real insights into a human is, okay, if I gave you the grace of a time machine and you could go back and do this project again, what would you do differently? And you get some very thoughtful answers and some very introspective answers, and you get some just, I clearly don't think about these things. I'm my own harshest critic. I'm every time I'm on the treadmill, I'm thinking about what I've done well and what I've done poorly and where I can improve. I kind of want someone with that same growth mindset. So that question for me is kind of one of the highlights.
You had another comment in a chat we were talking a while ago, but we were talking about like ageism, and you had this phenomenal insight that you shared, which was it's not ageism, it's mental flexibility, which I thought was like I scribbled that one down. And I'm like, that's a great quote. And I deeply believe you. It's like, I know as we get older in our careers, people are like, we're all worried about ageism, but you had this great quote. If I may misquote it, but it'd be fun to do it. You said like, when I was 35, I now understand what people were evaluating when I was 35 or something. But I'd be curious, do you remember that conversation and the comments you had around ageism at that point in time?
Well, I do remember it. I do think when I was co-founder at Birst, and it was my baby, right? My co-founder was the CEO, Brad Peters. I had various jobs, but ended up as a CCO, and I was trusting my baby, my family's future to these people. And the one thing that I wanted most to be sure of is that I wasn't going to bring in someone who was just going to run a play and didn't care about what was happening in our company or our unique strengths or unique weaknesses, unique needs, the unique demands of our product, the unique demands of our space. And I wanted to make sure that you would show up and bring your expertise and experience to the table, because that's incredibly valuable, but know how to deploy it intelligently. So be guided by your experience, not led by it. And that boundary is very important. There were plenty of people that we talked to, like, oh, I come in here and this is what I do. Like, okay, but you're out. I'm like, I don't want you to do that to my baby. Because what if it doesn't work? What if it partially works? You're just going to run the play anyway. So it was that willingness to adapt and tailor and take your learnings and apply them with forethought. That was the important demarcation for me.
I love that. How do you assess that? Right, like that's a hard one, right? Like, are there questions you would ask? Because I think I've seen increasingly with this, like, people don't want managers that are running playbooks. They want builders that are really hacking it, not hacking it, but like getting their hands dirty, learning and iterating. Ideally, you get both, right? You get the pattern recognition, but not the dogmatic fixation on a specific playbook. Like, how do you assess this?
For me, the behavioral interview.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so hey, your last job, you came in, what was the state of things? Okay, what did you decide to change first? Why did you decide to change that? Okay, what'd you change? How'd you roll it out? How do people accept it? What worked? What went poorly? How'd you adapt it? And I was like, well, I just run this route and I ran this thing out, and the next thing I rolled out was this, and the next thing I rolled out was that. I'm like, okay, you're out. Like, you're running a play.
So what's a what's a good answer to that one, which is like, here's how I set it up, here's how I tested, here's the data that I pulled, here's how I changed past 3 times in the process type of
Yeah. Well,
answer?
hey, in my experience, I've done this type of thing. So I ran this type of thing. I thought it would have the highest impact. I worked with the people in the company to tailor it to the needs of the organization and this customer base and the processes and strengths and weaknesses we have. And then we rolled it out. And by the way, we found out 3 months in that we had to change this one basic thing and this one unobvious thing. And then it went way better. And that's a great answer for me because you got people around the table from inside the business. You leveraged your experience. You deployed something pretty tailored. You quickly learned that you had to tweak it a little bit more, as you always do. Nothing is ever as easy or as quick as you think, and you're never 100% right up front. So if you've got that kind of pragmatic, I need to take this and apply it approach, those are great answers for me. It shows at least when I was the 35-year-old founder, that showed me that you were going to be thinking, adapting, and continually evolving those solutions rather than just slamming them on top.
I couldn't agree more. It's being attuned to listen to that stuff would save people a lot of mistakes. You've worked at least one, maybe 2 of the top AI companies I think of. Like, how do you assess AI fluency? I think you and I were talking the other day, and you're like, I think we even talked about this one, but yeah, I'd be curious, like, how do you assess it, particularly within a CS team? You probably need it deeply, but have you come up with any approaches to that?
Yeah, we're still early enough. I'm still more looking for AI openness and curiosity than fluency. Because depending on your role or whatever you've got cooking in your current gig and life, very few people have hit full fluency, but you need to be relatively familiar, at least with the types of things it can do. There's one difference. At Vercel, we did a very good job of rolling out a very real AI-led support process that started resolving 30%-ish of inquiries from customers, and just being maniacal. Our leader of support worldwide, Matthew Sweeney, did a fabulous job of this. Him and his team, relentless focus on everybody had to grade AI answers, 5 of them a week times 30 people. It built up expertise, tweaked and tuned the algorithm, retrain. And like inch by painful inch, it went from 30 to 70% of all conversations. But that, relentless and maniacal focus, if you haven't gone through that phase, but you know what a chatbot can do, and you've got some OpenSea to maybe what an agent is, which is basically it's an LLM in a while loop with tools. If you at least have some of those concepts, well, you got to teach the agent what works and what doesn't work, and just keep grinding on teaching it. If you haven't done that, great, we'll do it. You'll learn it here. That's fine. But at least you kind of know the types of things it can do and can't do, and we can work with that.
I love that. I mean, so I think that insight into support software is really fascinating, right? Like, one is you can't just set it up and assume it's going to get there. You've got to it's similar, like you have to talk to customers as a CS leader. You also have to look at support conversations. Like, we're going through this right now with Whisper. We launched our AI. It chats with candidates every day. It understands what they're good at, what their superpower is. But every night I go in and I review the chat logs and I train on some of them. And I think we've been building in the training modules for that. And it's like, I get to learn what people that maybe don't qualify for Whisper Pro are talking about with our AI. And eventually it's got to be like a version of me. I actually realized, you just helped me open up my eyes, but like all these support softwares are going through this exact same process of like, how do they get from 30 to 90%? And there's always going to be that like tier 3 that's not going to get solved by an AI, for sure. It's amazing how this whole support function is basically like everybody's in market, everyone's adopting, everyone's buying. Sounds like you guys were on the early end of that side.
Yeah, and it's a fabulous place to be. Certainly for software providers, and Vercel has a lot of free customers and pro customers. You're paying $20 a month, and then a couple thousand enterprise customers. But being able to satisfy your basic questions from the pro customers with an AI agent is tremendously lifting. There's very little more demoralizing than being like a high-functioning technical human and then answering simple questions all day. So it allowed, over the course of about 9 months, the headcount stayed relatively flat in that org. The case volume kept growing at rather dramatic paces. But the work mix for the humans who were there was that they got to spend more time digging 2 hours into a weird thing, trapping logs and doing all the sleuthing that the people in support love doing, right? Like they're the ER docs of the technical world. They want to be surprised by what comes in the door, and then they want to jump on it and figure it out. And they don't want sniffle after sniffle after sniffle after sniffle. They want some interesting stuff. So
I agree. It used to be that the support people were the future PS people or your CSMs or even your SDR salespeople. And now that rung is narrowing a little bit. Are there other it's clear that everyone's buying support software, right? Like the entire support industry will be completely turned over in a year or two if it's not already. Are there other AI use cases that you've sniffed at or played with at Vercel or at other places where you're seeing AI being applicable in the right places?
yeah, I'd say the first vortex for the use case product market fit exploded is obviously in coding agents. There's a lot of coding that is unglamorous, fairly rote. Hey, they released a change to this thing. I've got to go change this command to that command everywhere it appears. Not fun. The having agents who can help you do some of those more mundane tasks is incredibly freeing and lets the humans spend their creativity where their creativity should be spent, which is awesome. Support, I think, is next, the next big vortex. Because I think there's a little more platform requirements, a little more process. There's a little more. You can't just show up, look through the code, and make some simple changes. Like you really kind of have to be able to handle workflow and sense tone, and there's a bunch of stuff. But I think we're almost there.
It's also much more impacts your brand, right? Like if a support agent says something wrong, incorrect, illegal, like that can get screenshotted and impact your brand in really powerful ways. Where coding, you're like, oops, the program didn't work as well. So I think it's a lot more
Public.
Externally facing.
It's a lot more public. Yeah. And I know at Vercel there was tremendous success with part of the SDR function being pushed to an AI agent. So I do think that there are some customer outreach items that I think will be, pushed to agents soon. I don't think it's quite as far along as support, but I think it's not that far behind. And I would imagine there's going to be a tremendous amount of innovation with agents on the customer journey too, particularly among when you're looking at product-led growth companies. I think having some simple agents for some simple CSM work is going to be pretty applicable. So I think there's going to be more customer-facing functions that come online, but I think that's going to be behind kind of SDRs, but not so far down the road that it won't ever happen. I think it'll be pretty soon. So coding, support, SDR, CSM, I think.
I agree. I'd almost put support at the equivalent, but I think you make a good point. It's easier to sell in the coding happen like that. Maybe as we start to wrap up, like, as candidates are interviewing with you, are there good questions they can ask? Are there bad questions? Like, how do candidates show up well at that? Like, hey, great. Do you have any more questions for me? Phase of the equation.
The one question that I am so over is what keeps you up at night?
Ooh, that one is an annoying question. I call those lazy questions.
I hate that one. Hey, for this year to be really successful for you as a business, what's the top thing you need to get done this year? That's a great question.
Yeah.
But the what keeps you up at night question is a bad one. And the only bad, no questions is also not a good sign. Lack of curiosity. Even one good one is just indicative that you have something going on upstairs and you're not just a robot answering questions. But you don't need 7. You don't need to be endlessly curious. Just 1 or 2 really good ones that are more role specific would be awesome.
I love that. How do you make new hires successful, Paul?
Ooh. I would argue much like customer success, where at the end of the sales cycle, you need to be setting the right expectations in introducing the people they'll be working with. I very much, you have to have come in with the team having had a look at you. I have seen leaders jam a manager in over the wishes of the team in the past. It never goes well. You generally want the folks with whom this person will be working to be pretty excited about the candidate. And you need to make sure that everyone understands what this person's kind of primary charter is. And if you've got people who are, team first, which is one of the things I very much look for, I've got a lot of experience. I am right more often than I'm wrong, but I'm not right all the time. I've been married far too long to think I'm always right. And frankly, I don't care. I just want the company to be right. We need to be right. I don't need to be right. If all I do is recognize that you're right, this is a great meeting. Because we're now right when we leave. And we may find out we were less right than we thought we were, and we need to change it and adapt it. Oh, fine. But if you've got that kind of team first, collaborative culture, the people are excited about the person, they know what their charter is, they should be pretty willing to help. And in general, if you're working directly for me, we're talking a lot in your, daily for a while, and then twice a week, and then ultimately we'll kind of fall on the once a week one-on-ones. One pet peeve that I am not religious on, but in general, the folks who say I don't do one-on-ones, I haven't found value in them, it's kind of on you. You as a manager need to show up and make those meetings good. And you as an employee need to show up if you have one-on-one and make them good. And if you can't make them good, that's kind of on you. That's not that one-on-ones are bad. You just haven't done them. You're just not doing them right.
I'm a big fan of the ability to manage up is critical for people that I hire as well too. Well, Paul, our last traditional closing question is, who is the best hire you ever made and why?
Best hire I ever made was actually an internal transfer from corporate sales to CSM at Birst.
That's a great one, right? Because you brought that sales mentality into the CS org. And what you said early on is the ability to do discovery and understanding. Was that part of the purpose that you did that?
That was very much part of the purpose. And this individual was picked because their customers always came in awesome. So it was sales skills with real project management kind of ability to focus and target something of value in something that could be done and broken off and delivered with an eye to doing something next that would also be valuable. So I got kind of both of those skill sets in one person, and they grew to be a very successful executive running multiple departments and very real growth mindset. Great hire.
That is awesome. That's a really good one. I think the ability, how you think of the different DNAs of CS is awesome. I thank you for this time. I know we've talked so much over the years, and I've learned so. As you can tell, I hear our convos and I remember them and scribble down the insights. So thank you again for taking the time to join us today.
Well, thank you for having me. Always a pleasure, Andy. I'm fortunate enough to have been connected to you for longer than I think either of us would care to admit. But I'm pleased that we have been.
We have not aged visually at all, I would say.
I'm still 35.
If people have been,
I don't know what you're talking
about. Yeah, I feel 35. If people enjoy this, we'd love review on Apple, Spotify. Those are super powerful. And share. And Paul, have a great day.
Great. Thank you, Andy.